Okay, I'll not ask you again good afternoon because I don't want कि आप दोबारा बोले, ठीक है? तो अगर आपको लगता है तो good afternoon friends. Good afternoon. Actually यार पंजाबियों की ना आदत होती है, उन्हें थोड़ा ऊंचा सुनने की आदत होती है. तो I'm not getting your voice. Good afternoon friends. Good afternoon. That's the thing. So first of all, I would like to congratulate all of these guys who are able to bring such a wonderful knowledge over this platform. एक बार जोरदार तालियां हो जाए हमारी पूरी कमेटी के लिए. And for you guys, you are spectacular. एक लाइन बोलना चाहूंगा जो मैंने खुद ही लिखी है और वो कल ही लिखी है कि यूं तो शहर और भी है आजमाने को बहुत, मगर यूं तो शहर और भी है आजमाने को, मगर ठाकुर शहर ए अहमदाबाद की बात ही कुछ और है. So guys, starting with my presentation. It's working. Okay, so revenue from contract with customers. In order to establish a principle for recording revenue from customers, Ministry of Corporate Affairs has issued Ind AS 115, revenue from contract with customers, that is conversed out from IFRS. As my brother has stated, IFRS 15, revenue from contract with customer, and it supersets and replaces. Pay attention guys. It supersets and replaces Ind AS 11 and 18. That simply counts. Now we don't need Ind AS 11 and 18. थोड़ा syllabus में कम पढ़ना पड़ा. So with this accounting standard signifies accountability for the contract, individual contract. However, it can be used or its provision can be applied over the portfolio of contract. The core principle of this accounting standard is to depict the transfer of goods or services to the customers for an amount reflected as consideration that an entity is expected to entitle to. So my friends, the scope of Ind AS 115 that simply says to depict a transfer of goods or services to the customer and for an amount that can be considered as consideration that an entity expected in return is applicable to all the contracts. Guys, I'm saying all the contracts with the customer that obtain goods or services, goods or services from an entity that are an output of that entity. But with all the contracts in mind, it does not apply to lease contract, Ind AS 17, insurance contract 104, non-mandatory exchanges between the entities in the same line of a business to facilitate sales. बहुत लंबा हो गया ना? Let's understand it in an example. Like there are two oil companies, they entered into an agreement to provide with the facility of goods, like goods क्या होगा, oil, to their potential customer, like different locations में. And the last one is financial instruments and other contractual rights within the scope of Ind AS 109, 110, 111, 27, 28. Do you want me to name them or you know guys? You know? Oh यार एक बार जोरदार तालियां हो जाए. You all know? जोरदार, अपने ऊपर ही डाउट है. Well, great then. So revenue from contract with customer. Revenue from contract with customer. These are the three pillars. What we call revenue income arising in the ordinary activity of an entity. Contract, an agreement between two or more parties creating enforceable rights and obligations. And the third one is customer. Party contracting with an entity to obtain goods or services in exchange of consideration. So the counterparty is customer, as we have discussed earlier. Can you see that gentleman, what is he is finding? You may help him later on. Okay, so Ind AS revenue from contract with customer is based on 5-step model. And these are, number 1 step, identify the contract with the customer. Number 2, identify the performance obligation in the contract. Number 3, determine the transaction price. Number 4, recognize revenue when or as. You should pay attention to or as the entity satisfies its performance obligation. Step 5, allocate the transaction price to the performance obligation in the contract. Okay. Now, as I have told you, the counterparty is the customer. wherever the customer is, Ind AS 115 will be applicable to the contracts. Like कहीं पे भी customer को वहाँ नहीं लगाने का, ठीक है? जो contract हो वो देखने का. So in order to go with identify the contract, the step 1, any contract with a customer is in the scope of Ind AS 115. Does that mean कि company के shareholders or lenders, they are also the customers? Do you think any of you guys? No, they are the stakeholders. That simply counts कि Ind AS 115 इस transaction पे नहीं लगेगा. And as it is said, enforceable rights and obligation. Enforceability is a matter of law, is a question of law. So in order to judge that whether the contract is there or existing or not, we have 5 parameters. We have to identify, first, the parties have approved the contract or committed to perform. Then we have to check each party's right regarding goods and services to be transferred. Then we have identified the payment terms of the goods services to the transferred. The contract has commercial substance and it is probable. मतलब ऐसे तो यार ये fact है that people will take their money back from customer, right? Free में तो नहीं कोई बेचेगा. So that is the thing. It is probable that the entity will collect consideration. But the point is that all these conditions should be met in order to declare it is a contract. And when an entity determines that the proposed agreement is a contract, there is no need to reassess the contract. And if there is certain modification in any of the steps, they have to check once again from step 1. Like I told you, if there is modification, significant modification is there in the contract, then there is a guidance in Ind AS 115 regarding modification, and that deals with identify if the contract has been modified. Then we have to determine if the modification results in separate contract or termination of existing contract along with creation of new one or continuation of existing one. And then we have to account for the contract modification accordingly. So here the step 1 completes. Now we are moving towards identify the performance